Welcome to episode 3 of Torch Talks. Today's episode is titled The Voices of Urban Education. This is the podcast where we explore ideas, stories, and research that shape in the future of our schools and communities. I am one of your hosts, Jakari C. Patterson, a graduating senior education studies major from the beautiful city of Home, Louisiana, and this is...
I am your co-host, Equan Caleb James. I am a junior educational studies major with a minor in Chinese studies on the pre-law track from Silver Spring, Maryland.
And we have the absolute honor of sitting with two distinguished leaders who have not only advanced the field of education through their scholarship and leadership, but who have also inspired us personally as we take this walk as future educators, leaders, and servants in this field. At the International Conference of Urban Education in Cancun, Mexico, we had the privilege of learning from these two giants, Dr. Chance Lewis and Dr. Stephen Hancock. Their presence, passion, and commitment to educational equity lit a fire within many of us, reminding us that our service matters, that our voices are needed, and our generation has a role to play in the work that they've begun.
Let me introduce them properly. First, Dr. Chance W. Lewis, the Carol Grotness Belt Distinguished Professor of Urban Education at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and Executive Director of the Urban Education Collaborative with over 100 scholarly publications, 30 books, and $7 million in research funding. Dr. Lewis is shaping urban education on the national scale and inspiring new generation of researchers, educators, and policy advocates. Dr. Lewis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Next, Dr. Stephen D. Hancock, the Shirley T. Fry Distinguished Professor and Founding Director of the Center of Excellence for Educational Equity Research, CEER, at North Carolina A&T State University. His work centers on systemic change, qualitative methods, and equity-driven research. As an international lecturer and author of the Autoethnography. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. As a lighthouse, Dr. Hancock brings a global perspective to a local imperative. Every student deserves access to high-quality education. Dr. Hancock, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, and it's an honor to be here.
I always wanted to do that. Okay, so we just go kick it off with a few questions, and basically we want to start off knowing more about your journey. How did you get here? So our first question is going to say, straight up, both of y'all have impacted our lives directly from the time we met y'all up until this point in so many different ways. And you've impacted so many lives through your teaching, your leadership, and your research. So if both of you could, no matter what order, could you, okay, Dr. Lewis first, could you share what first inspired your journey into education and more specifically your dedication to education and education equity?
Well, first, once again, I'm just honored to be here. It's just truly a pleasure to sit down with young gentlemen like yourselves to just have this kind of education, intellectual conversation. And a little bit about my journey in education. So I'm from the great state of Louisiana.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But what started my journey was I come from a family of educators. I think I'm probably third generation education major. And as a typical college student, I tried to fight it. I said, I'm not doing nothing in education. I'm a major in chemistry and just go down that path. But then it called me. So one of the more kind of influential things in my life on the journey was my grandfather was the first dean of education at Southern University. And so seeing that model, at that particular time, I saw a figure of, a male in education that was doing leadership, right? And so at that particular time in his age, my mother graduated in his college of education, right? So seeing that, and my grandmother was an educator, so on and so forth, but saw him producing educators, right? And so when you see models like that, it kind of, shows you a picture of what you can do. But in my fighting it, right, I said, I don't want to be any part of that. And then in looking at my particular journey, the school I went to high school, I started off at a magnet high school in ninth grade, for the academic part of it. But I had a great interest in the band, as a graduate of Southern University, the
Yes,
band is
sir.
huge. So I ended up going to a school called Capitol High School in Baton Rouge. And for many people on the outside of that school, they look at that like, oh, you went to that school? I'm sorry about that. Right? So many people, externally, looked at that as a downgrade, or, many people kind of turned their noses up to me. So at that particular time, I was in the midst of urban education in a real way, because nobody outside of that school believed that anybody inside of that school could really do anything, academically or whatever. So I was there for, band, but then also on the academic side as well, I was challenged. So it was a school at that particular time where it was predominantly black, right? And so all my teachers were black, and coming from Magnet High School, it was just different, right?
Yeah,
but I grew up in a neighborhood where, of course, everyone was black or what have you, but having those educators in front of me as well. So whether it's my English teacher or computer science teacher or whatever, black females, black males, that are in that educational space. And that really struck a chord with me from what you could do educationally, because I got to see people outside of my own family that was in the education space. And I said, okay, well, wait a minute. This is a thing, and it had a great influence on me in what I wanted to do in my pathway. So given that in my journey, in this urban education environment, it showed me some of the possibilities of impact that I could have on others, because I saw these particular educators with students in my class that everybody on the outside had written off, basically, turned them into engineers and all of these great things that they're doing now. And it was just because of that influence. They didn't have the right address, they didn't have the right family income, they didn't have any of that we talk about in education, but those educators were transformative for them. So those were things on my particular journey that showcase possibilities in education that I wanted to take on. And then I ended up changing my major from chemistry to business education, and then graduating. And then as soon as I graduated, I had the job before I graduated teaching high school. So I taught 4 years of high school in the state of Louisiana. Was fortunate my last year to get Teacher of the Year for not only the school district but for the state as well.
Man.
So that was kind of my pathway into education, kind of seeing these figures, fighting it, but then once I saw it in high school in action in my own classroom, it definitely had an influence on me, seeing these figures like probably what you saw at IQ, as well.
So for me, I think, being the seventh son and the ninth child out of 11, growing up in the projects of Richmond, Virginia, what brought me into education was the calling. I know without a shadow of a doubt it's in me. It was a gift that God gave me. When I was a kid, I used to try and teach my two younger siblings. They wouldn't have it, so I would teach the wall. And as an early reader and someone who really loved education, it was always in me. Now, like Dr. Lewis, I fought it. Of course, I went to undergraduate as a science major, a pre-med major, and God said, I'm not having it.
Right. Exactly.
So I hit the organic chemistry class, and it didn't go well.
I know that feeling.
And so I changed my major to education, to English, with a minor in Latin and education as my master's, and it just was very, very smooth. And so for me, that was the way it went. I mean, seeing my siblings teach me, they were my first teachers. I stand on their shoulders. I learned to read because being the ninth child and having siblings 10 years older, I was able to glean a lot from them. And then, of course, growing up in the projects, just like with Dr. Lewis, I went to the school that was looked down on, and but it was pushing out awesome educators, and so it was my venture into graduate school and undergraduate school was to give back. And so before I even graduated, this is how I know I was teaching preschool. So I taught preschool for the 4 years I was in college.
Wow.
And then graduated and taught for 10 more years in elementary school, kindergarten through third grade. So about 15 years in the public school sector, and enjoyed every moment of it. And that gave me the strength, it gave me the insight, the knowledge, and experience to continue teaching teachers and inspiring people in education. And for the term that you asked about equity, being in a home with 10 siblings, equity was real. You got
Right.
what you needed, not what you wanted.
Right.
Yes.
And so, it as a kid, that didn't seem like it was comfortable, but it was real, because I got more in some points and I got less in some points, but it was what I needed. And so, equity is also like the calling to teach. The calling to equity is also something that's really birthed in me. So that was how my journey got there.
No, thank y'all for sharing those stories with us. Definitely, it really gives us insight on your passion that you have to do this work. As somebody who grew up in Louisiana and
Yeah.
somebody who grew up with a bunch of siblings, I resonate with everything y'all just
Right.
said.
Right.
So yeah, I heard you talk about the IQ conference. That's where we met. For the most part, well, we met Dr. Hancock when he came give us this spiel on
What
you
we
have
can and
2
cannot
months
do.
to be finished.
Right.
But
Better get it together.
he was like, everybody else had a year. You have 2 months. I was
Right.
like, all right. I cried for 2 days, but that's all right. We got it done, and we had a great time. So at the IQ conference, many of us were struck not just by the content that we saw, but by the spirit of the words. You gave a phenomenal speech at the dinner that I'm pretty sure set with all of us, and then you went to pray heaven down over the food right after. So and you definitely spoke life into me the first and the last day of me being
Right.
there.
Indeed.
So my question is, what does this conference mean to you all? And how do you see gatherings such as the IQ conference shaping the future of education as well as the leaders that's going into it?
Yeah, I mean, IQ is, man, it's amazing. It really
That
came
it
as a
is.
vision first, right?
Right.
Dr. Hancock and I have been in this higher education space and friends for over 20 years, right? And so he was the one that actually recruited me to University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I was at Texas A&M at the time, and I clearly remember for IQ, I remember when I got the vision for it, right? So I got the vision in 2008, and I went to Charlotte in 2011, right? So at the conference, I kind of talked about, I saw all of you before you even got here, right?
Yes.
But the whole premise of IQ, given my background and what Dr. Hancock explained, of the experiences that we've had, I really looked at the conferences that we were going to in our spaces, and basically anything for black and brown folks, they would put it in a corner, right?
Yes.
Like, y'all go over there and talk a little bit, and then figure out whatever you need to figure out, then come on back out here with the rest of us, right? So, but in the vision that I got, I wanted to bring folks together around urban education, because there was no space specifically for urban education for people to come and gather, right? And so I wanted to bring people not only across the U.S. but across the world, because when I look at the issues around urban education, they were very similar across the world, right? And so I said, in putting the conference together and getting the vision forward, I said I wanted a place where they can gather, but not just come and talk about problems, right? Talk about solutions, right? And that's why I heavily stress that all the time. It has to be solution focused, because people want answers.
Yes.
Okay, so when you go back, whether it's in Atlanta, Charlotte, DC, wherever, right, people are looking for answers. So the conference was created on that platform of solution-based opportunities for people to come together, right? But then the other thing is that I didn't want it to be just a conference, right? I wanted it to be an experience. And
that it was.
So when I got to Charlotte, and, and I kind of told him the vision, and we worked on it and shaped it together, and said, well, let's create an experience. So, and he'll talk about it too. We kind of talked about it, and we have our different roles in the planning of it that's distinctive. Each of us, we always say each of us have our own lane, right? And so my lane was to kind of visualize it, pick these cool locations, and
Get the money.
Get the money, right? Get the money to support it. You know what I mean? But create an atmosphere where people will want to bring their families, right? People would want to come to, just get refreshed and renewed. Because I wanted it to be different than a normal conference, because at a normal conference you would just go, do your session, and then you're out, right? You wouldn't be, they wouldn't feed you, right? None of that, right? Wouldn't have any kind of extracurricular things that are going on around the conferences, like the shows you saw, like the DJ and all of that. So in kind of thinking about IQ, I said, okay, if people can come have a conference experience, right?
Yeah.
But then you have other experiences around it, and then no conference that we've ever had in education was at an all-inclusive place.
Heavy on
God
the
said, so
all-inclusive.
people,
Correct.
think about people, if they've never had this experience, I said, okay, what would be ways to attract them to these different places across the globe? Because it's never in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about a leap of faith where you're putting together a conference where everybody has to go out of the country, get passports, had a budget to pay for it, and all of that. And so you had to create an exclusive experience. So then that's why I thought about the all-inclusive pieces of the conference, because now people can, like we like to say, ball on a budget, you know what I mean? And, just come and not worry about
Right.
that part. If you just pay the room fee, all of these things, come with it, right?
Yeah.
And so the first one was in 2012
12.
in Jamaica. And so, excuse me.
I wish I would have been
You're
there
looking at that,
2012.
and so we've gone from Montego Bay, we've gone to the Bahamas at the Atlantis Resort, we've gone to
Puerto Rico.
San Juan, Puerto Rico. Where else have we gone? Well,
And then Cancun.
in Cancun, right? And so each year, I think the first one started in Jamaica with about 200 people.
Yeah,
Right.
250.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, so first
Yeah.
one, where you get that amount of people, so you say, okay, well, we're on to something, right? But it was intentionally done every 2 years because we needed a break in between.
Because we had other jobs.
We had other jobs that we were doing, but all of this was part of the center, right, and what
Right.
we were doing. But in looking at that, we knew after the first one we were on to something, right? We had some of the key names in the field come and keynote to attract people, but we knew between us, we had contacts in the field, but then it grew kind of exponentially from there. People from the community would come. People say, I'm bringing my whole family. All of this is going on.
From London.
London, people came from, all these other places. So
Yeah.
we knew something was going on, as well. And then it grew and grew and grew until the last one with what you all saw, with close to 800 attendees, not counting families. So if you count the families, you're clearly over 1,000. So
I think it was 1,300 without the
so
family.
now it's a whole kind of economy in itself where you can kind of sell out of these resorts, as well. And so that's just the vision of staying true to the work, right? But you have these people who are working in urban education spaces saying, I want to go to a place where my work is valued, right? People want to know what I'm talking about, these solutions that people could bring back,
Right.
as well. So that's how the conference kind of got started and has grown, over time. And, now the good part about it is, we have different cities with locations competing or in all these great locations, as well, because I'm working on 2026
Man,
right
man.
Where
now.
we going 2026?
I can't tell you yet. I can't classify the info, but the thing is that people, these resorts now compete to have it. So that just kind of shows you the vision, how it manifests itself. So my role is the locations, vision, hotels, get the money, do all the logistical stuff, negotiate reasonable rates so people can afford to get there, but make it look like, is much more expensive than what they have to pay, as well, because I know the budgets that pretty much people have, and I know the universities that they're working with as well. So,
Yeah.
so now each time we factor in the growth now, as we negotiate. The one I'm working on now is, buying out whole resorts, as well. So that's how the vision has grown, in the work that we're doing as well. So,
And so
I'll let
right,
him talk about his part.
And so, right, so, as the visionary, one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we have this academically and intellectually rigorous space. So we have double and triple blind reviews of every proposal. So people are not just getting accepted. You are going through rigorous proposal reviews. But the major part of it is that one of the things that we discussed was we wanted to make sure that it was intellectually rigorous, but spiritually rejuvenating. We know the work of urban education, many faculty in this space, is draining at their universities. It's draining at their spaces because, as Dr. Lewis said, we're not appreciated. Some of the work is not appreciated. And so we wanted a place where people can come, get the academic and intellectual rigor, but also to rejuvenate themselves. And that's why the vision of Dr. Lewis's vision to be in a all-inclusive space and have these two things together was brilliant. And it was my job to then make that happen. And so that's what we've been doing. So the way we schedule it is we make sure that we're over by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon so people can enjoy and rejuvenate and revive themselves. But one of the major components we also have is, and you all were involved in that, is when we take people off of property to give back to the community. So one of the things that we wanted to do always is to give back to the local community that we're in. And so each year we've done fundraising and support for schools in every country we've been in. Just last year, you all know, we built a library. Remember when we got there? How many books were there?
Like,
0.
Yeah.
When we left there with 372 books.
That was
And
amazing.
so we build libraries, we've done all that. And so that's one of the things that is the joy of what this section I have to do, is to just be able to do all of those wonderful things. And it is a lot of work because everything you see as far as the conference is concerned, I'm right in the middle of it. And so, but the biggest thing is bringing this combination. There is no other conference that gives you that rejuvenation as well as the academic and intellectual support.